Newspaper headlines said Tesla is buying up batteries, and not just a few batteries, they're buying up millions and millions of them. So what's going on? I'm Dave, welcome to Dave Takes It On, and this is our regular look into what's actually behind the news headlines. So here today we're going to have a look at the story about why Tesla is buying up the batteries, if indeed they are. So to do this, we need to go back a few years and look at the battery industry and the EV industry as it was. And this is round about 5, 6, 7 years ago when the Model 3 had launched, 2017, and it was a massive success. You see, up until that point, all the legacy auto were pretty much, we don't want this to work, we don't think this is going to work, EVs are going to crash and burn, it's not worth even bothering about, so let's just ignore them for the moment and see what happens. Well, Tesla Model 3 happened, it came in at a sensible price, around about £40,000, and at that price it started taking an awful lot of market share away from the legacy auto. So at first the legacy auto thought, well, yeah, nothing to worry about. But then they saw their sales starting to drop off a little bit and they realised they're going to have to do something. In their absolute arrogance, they just honestly believed what they were hearing. What they were hearing was from all the EV critics saying, oh, you just wait till Ford gets going. As soon as they decide they're going to make EVs, they're going to wipe Tesla off the face of the earth. Newcomers and everything, Ford, they're the experts. They know how to make cars properly. They'll just switch on to EVs and away they go. And sadly, they all believe that. So about 6 or 7 years ago, 5, 6, 7 years ago, they suddenly thought, whoa, we're going to have to do something about this. So they didn't want to scrap anything they were doing. They didn't want to affect their own sales. So they thought they'd bring in a range of EVs on top of what they already did. If everyone carried on buying the petrol cars, brilliant. They were happy. That's where they made the profit. If anyone did buy an EV, then they would make even more money because they charged extra. So they would take an existing model. This applied to Ford and Volkswagen, BMW, Mercedes, Audi, Renault. Everybody just thought, let's just make them. So they do what they normally do. They go out and get their supply chain organised. So they'll find people for batteries and for motors and for components and for screens and you name it, they'll buy everything, arrange to buy everything in. And they decided that because the Model 3 was such a success, that there's a big market out here. So they set up all the supply chains. And then from a technical point of view, they just took one of their existing cars. This could have been a Vauxhall Astra, could have been a Ford Mustang. Very, very little difference. They just took a petrol version of a car. They took out all the gubbins, the engine, the exhaust pipe, the fuel tank, everything like that, the gearbox, and threw all that away and then crammed in some batteries and some motors, a few other bits and pieces. And within a year or so, they were just launching these onto the market. Because they weren't skilled in it and because they didn't have high numbers, when they were buying from manufacturers, they were paying a high price for the components. They didn't know what they were doing, so each car was a bit of an experiment, virtually hand-built. And the end result was they were building cars that would cost more to make than they could actually sell them for. But it didn't worry them. They got plenty of money. They thought, we can get over this, and we don't even know how well they'll sell. Maybe the EVs will still collapse, and we can go back to making proper cars. So they produced these for early cars, the legacy auto cars, EVs, and they were not that good. There was no purpose design or anything like that. It was just take an existing body. Mercedes EQA as example, it's a Mercedes GLA, same car. So same seats, same windows, same boot space, same everything. All it was, instead of having a petrol tank or a diesel tank and a gearbox and an engine, just had batteries and electric motors. So they would sell these and they would put the price up, a crazy price. Mercedes EQA, for example, I think the launch price of that was about 56,000. Well, 30,000, you can get yourself a GLA, round about that figure, 35, 40,000. So these were like 50, 80% higher price. And of course, they sold some. There are some diehards. These are the early adopters. They would always go in and buy everything, but not many. And consequently, they just withered away. Because they were losing money on everyone they sold, Ford at one point were claiming they were losing about $50,000 on a car that they sold for $50,000. It meant that it cost them $100,000 to build it, and they only got $50,000 back when they sold. It was a crazy situation. And that was a time, this was the Mustang Mach-E. You could get a petrol Mustang for $30,000, something in that region. And of course, they didn't sell any. So, very quickly, well, it took a couple of years, but quickly in the motor industry, they discovered that what all the critics were saying was wrong. You can't just switch over to it. And there's a cracking interview out with Jim Farley where he puts his hand up and he goes, we didn't know what we were doing. We've always just bought components in, and all of a sudden we were buying components in that we didn't understand. We couldn't work out what they did, how they worked, and this was just total shock to us. We've reached a stage just a year or so ago where all of the legacy auto have just decided, that's it, let's call a halt for a minute. Let's switch back onto hybrids for the moment and let's regroup. We do realise EVs are the future. They have to come along one day. There's so many reasons for doing it. We just hadn't expected to do it yet. We thought we'd get another 5, 10, 20 years out of the petrol side. We're not going to do that now. So we're going to regroup. We're going to come back with some really cracking models, but there'll be another year or 3 before they start coming online. So the offerings from the legacy auto have virtually died away. They are really suffering at the moment. They're not selling very many of the legacy EVs at all. And this is the headlines you see in all the press. EV sales are crashing. They are for them. Tesla's still growing. I think last year was 1.2 million cars made. So year before last, 1.2 million. Last year was 1.8 million. They're still growing. It's just the rate of growth has slowed down. Anyway, cut a long story short, they'd gone out to their manufacturers, their suppliers, and they'd ordered a shed load of stuff, and specifically in this case, batteries. And the battery manufacturers, when the orders were placed, didn't have the spare capacity at the time, because don't forget, these batteries were originally meant for laptops and power drills and electric wheelchairs and things like that. They were never in the mainstream market. So when Ford and Vauxhall and Mercedes got in touch with LG and CATL and Panasonic and all the other battery manufacturers and said, we need masses of these batteries, they had to build new factories. It took time. And they had to develop them into mass production because they weren't effectively before that. And so they took time to ramp up their production. And it turned out 2 things. First of all, by the time the production was ramped up, that was the time when Ford and Mercedes and BMW were ringing them up saying, I ordered these batteries. Yeah, we don't actually need them. Sorry. But we'll come back in a couple of years. We'll have some from you then, but just at the moment we don't want them. And the second thing that's happened is the battery chemistry has changed over those last 5 or 6 years. It's moved on dramatically. The cost of lithium has come down. The chemistry's got better. They brought out LFP batteries just a couple of years ago, and these are much cheaper, and they're actually really stable. Much less likely to catch fire. Almost impossible. Little bit down on power, but not bad for a cheap battery. And so that's why you'll find today almost all of the budget models will be LFP batteries. They're just cheaper and they're quite okay for those. Your performance models, these are your Porsche Taycans and the Tesla performance models, they'll still be on the NMC, the nickel, manganese, cobalt, because they give massive amounts of power. At the risk, they are a little bit more volatile. So what's happened is that the manufacturers now, Legacy Auto, are ringing up all the battery companies. Whoa, hold fire on those batteries. We don't want them anymore. Well, hang on a minute. We've just built a brand new factory, brand new production lines, and for the last year we've been churning these out at a phenomenal rate. You can't not take them. And they go, we have no market for them. We have no EVs on the road at the moment. The ones we do, we've already got stacks of batteries, so can't take them, I'm afraid. So they were left with these batteries, which 3 or 4 years ago, lithium was a lot more expensive. So these are quite expensive batteries. In the meantime, LFPs come along and they're cheaper. So everyone now at the budget end of the market is buying all the LFP batteries. So the demand for these NMCs is rapidly diminishing, particularly as sodium batteries are coming along and solid state batteries are coming along. So these are really stuck in the middle, redundant. So what they did, they went out to people who actually wanted them. And that was Tesla. Well, Tesla didn't want them as such. They make their own batteries. They've got their own battery factory and it's going very well. They also have agreements with all of the manufacturers. That's the CATLs, the Panasonic, the LGs. And they were quite happy for batteries. And last year on the end of year profit statement, they actually said they're no longer battery constrained. What that means is that if you gave them a whole pile more batteries, they wouldn't be able to build more cars. The constraint is now in the factory, not in the batteries. The year before it was in the batteries. They couldn't get enough batteries. If you could have given them extra batteries, they'd have turned out more cars. But last year they reached the end of the year, they reached the point where their batteries now, they have more batteries than they can make cars in a year. So Tesla wasn't desperately keen to have them. However, eye to a bargain. It's a very rich company. They've got something like 29 billion sat in the bank doing nothing, and they're pulling in a huge amount of money all the time. They are profitable. And so the battery manufacturers sort of, oh, please, will you take them off us? And Tesla has negotiated an absolutely crazy giveaway fire sale price. It is a rock bottom price because Tesla can make their own cheaper. Why would Tesla buy these things in? The only reason they'll buy them in is if they are at about the same price or less than the cost they can make them. There's no huge advantage to buying them in. These are good batteries. They're ready to go. They're one other thing as well. They're not LFPs. Everyone else, even Tesla, has gone on to LFPs. So these are lower power batteries, great for the lower models and the longer range where you don't need good acceleration, but no good for the top end cars. But now they were given the opportunity to buy these NMC batteries cheaper than they can make LFPs. And that's a whole new ball game. That has totally changed the market. So all of a sudden now, price of lithium has dropped dramatically, and these batteries now that are being offered are coming under the price. They can actually make them themselves. So Tesla said, yes, get some money out of the bank. Let's buy them. As many as you've got, bring them on. We'll have the whole lot. And the reason is that whatever happens with the car market, and talk about recession, there isn't, it's still booming. But even if there was a recession, Tesla can use them elsewhere. They could use them in the semis. There's a big demand for those. They can use them in the Cybertruck. Massive demand still for those. Where they can use them in the mega packs. Huge demand, so like a 2-year waiting list for those. And they can use them in the Powerwalls for the home. And that's a growing market as well. So Tesla thought, well, great. We'll have all these batteries. They're really cheap. But here's the killer. Later on this year, early next year, they're going to be launching the Model 2. This is the Redwood. Nobody's seen it yet. Some lovely, fantastic artist impressions and designs. It's going to look really stunning. And later on this year, also robotaxis are going to be coming along as well. So Tesla has a demand for them. They want to ramp up the semi, the lorry production at the same time. They are ramping up the Cybertruck production, and they've got new factories opening up for, new extensions opening up for the Model 2s. So Tesla can take them, and it just saves them having to make it. But you can now put into a Model 2 an NMC battery. And this is a better battery in virtually every respect. It's just that previously they were so expensive that you couldn't afford to put them in your budget car. Now, these top of the range batteries are at the bottom of the range price below the price of an LFP. So Tesla, I believe, is now looking towards putting some of these into the Model 2, the Redwood. And what you're going to get is an absolute powerhouse of a budget car. The batteries now, I mean, just to put some perspective on it, if 2 years ago, 3 years ago, they were making the batteries themselves, and a pack of batteries was costing $10,000. It's not a figure, it's just a guess. They're buying these things at $2,000 or $3,000. It's absolute giveaway. What it does, the first thing it does, it brings down the cost of that car. The battery used to be the single biggest part of it, probably no longer is anymore. There's probably other components that are very close, if not overtaken it. So you're going to be able to build a much cheaper car, or keep the price up a bit and make a higher profit. But it's going to be a better car. It's going to have better batteries than a base Model 3 or Model Y. It's going to have better batteries than the LFP they were thinking of putting into it. And that will give them greater range and greater performance. Now, I know when you're buying a little hatchback, there are some boy racers, but the vast majority of people who buy little hatchbacks, it's for the kids and ferrying around and a little bit of shopping. Performance is not one of your key issues. But if you get the powerful batteries, it could be. So we are likely to see these batteries, which are pouring into Tesla, stockpiling them like mad at the moment, and they are going to be coming out. Now, I suspect they're going to come out on the Model 3 next. The Juniper, which is the Model Y refresh, which is due out sometime this year. This is like the Model 3 refresh. And the Highland. And I suspect that some of these batteries are going to end up in the Model 3s, because if you're buying a base Model 3 and expecting LFP batteries, and you suddenly get NMCs which are twice as powerful, 50 mile, 100 mile extra range, you're not going to complain. They'll also use them on the mega packs. They can increase production a little bit there. Use them on the semis. They're not going to be battery constrained. Use them on the Cybertruck. So for Tesla, this is an absolute bonus. For the buying public, we are likely to get the Model 2, the Redwood, at or near the price they promised, because they've just had $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 knocked off the price of the battery that they're having to buy for it. Because these are more powerful, they can actually put fewer batteries into each one. LFP, you have to have more batteries because each one is less power dense. So they are going to get a mass of these batteries. They're going to be really powerful, and they can put less of them into the Redwood, and you're going to get a fabulous car out of it, and it's going to be cheaper than you were anticipating. I'm projecting now, with these batteries and a few other changes, such as the manufacturing changes they're talking about, that these are going to come in under $25,000. I also see, because that's going to take some of the market away from the Model 3, people are going to go, I bought a Model 3 because it's a Tesla and it's a really good car and I like it, but I don't need anything that big. I'll switch onto the Model 2, the Redwood. And so Tesla will almost certainly see a dip in sales for the Model 3. Model Y is relatively safe because that's an SUV. It's a big car, and that can probably stay where it is. The Model 3 now is a bit of an outlier. So I see the Model 3 coming down quite dramatically. So these batteries will probably be piling into the Model 3. That's going to come down. I'm forecasting by the end of the year, early next year, down to about 35,000 UK price. For a Model 3 basic model. And I believe the Model 2, we won't get it for the first year or so. There's just not enough capacity to make it. But when it comes in here, probably at mid-end of 2025, early 26, that one I believe will come in somewhere round about the £25,000 pound range. Thanks very much to these batteries. So it's amazing how just a little story in the paper about Tesla's buying up these batteries, and it leads on to a massive it's not anticipation, it's planning. Tesla just are looking so far forward. What can we be doing to get prices down? Oh yeah, we'll have them. Yeah, get the batteries in now. Bring us as many as you can. Yeah, we've got sheds available for them. Get them all in here. Plus all the innovations with the new manufacturing processes and everything else. And they are literally driving the prices down. When the Model 2 comes out, that's going to just rejuvenate the market. It's going to go crazy. Last year, the best-selling car in the world, Tesla Model Y, cost 50,000 quid. And it's the best. It outsold the Toyota Corollas and the, you name it, everything else. Well, obviously, best-selling car in the world. But it was beating cars half the price. When they bring out a car half the price, the market is going to go absolutely crazy for it. So what we have there is an opportunist purchase, and that is going to change the way we buy our cars later in the year. So that's my forecast. That's what's happening at the moment. So thank you very much for watching. If you've enjoyed this, please click the like button. If you'd like to see more, click subscribe. Hit the notification bell so we'll notify you when we release them. Thanks for watching. I'm Dave.